The notification appeared at 6:43 in the morning, and Claire Donovan felt her stomach drop before she even read it. She was standing in the narrow kitchen of her apartment in Scranton, Pennsylvania, pouring milk into a bowl of cereal for her daughter Lily, when her phone lit up on the counter. The message preview showed only 3 words: "Saw your video." She didn't recognize the number. Her hand froze mid-pour, and milk splattered onto the laminate countertop, spreading in a thin white pool that she didn't immediately wipe up because her brain had gone somewhere else entirely, to a place where strangers knew things about her life that they shouldn't. Lily was humming in the living room, arranging her collection of smooth river stones in a pattern only she understood. She did this every morning before school. The same ritual, the same careful placement of each stone according to size and color gradient. Claire had learned not to rush her through it. The humming meant Lily felt safe. And safety was something Claire had fought hard to build in the 10 months since the divorce. She forced herself to breathe and turned her phone face down without reading the rest of the message. There would be time later. There was always time later in the dark, when Lily was asleep, and Claire could let herself feel everything she kept locked away during the daylight hours. The apartment smelled like burnt toast, because Claire had forgotten to check the toaster while staring at her phone. She scraped the black edges into the sink and slathered the remaining bread with butter, hands moving on autopilot. Her shift at the hospital started at 8, which meant dropping Lily at school by 7:30, which meant leaving in 12 minutes. Everything in Claire's life existed in 12-minute increments now, small, manageable blocks of time that didn't leave room for panic. She had perfected the art of not thinking about next month's rent, or the noise her car made when she turned left, or the fact that her ex-husband hadn't sent child support in 3 months. Lily appeared in the doorway, holding a single stone, the grey one with white veins that looked like lightning. "Mom, do you think Marcus will be at the store today?" Her voice carried that particular quality of hope that made Claire's chest ache. Marcus worked at the grocery store on Main Street, stocking shelves with a precision that bordered on autistic. He had shown Lily his system once, how he organized canned goods by label, color, and height, and Lily had been fascinated in a way she rarely was with other adults. Claire had watched them together, Marcus speaking in his careful, literal way about structural integrity and visual harmony, and Lily nodding like she'd finally found someone who understood that the world made sense when things were in their right places. "Maybe," Claire said, because she'd learned not to make promises about other people's schedules. Marcus didn't always work Mondays. Sometimes he needed what his mother called quiet days, and Claire had pieced together enough to understand that meant days when the world felt too loud and too much. She understood that more than she'd ever admit out loud. Her own version involved standing in the shower until the water ran cold, letting the sound drown out the voice in her head that kept replaying every mistake, every failing, every moment she'd been measured and found wanting. The phone buzzed again, then again. Claire picked up the cereal bowl and brought it to Lily, setting it on the coffee table next to the stones. "Eat, sweetheart. We have 11 minutes. Lily picked up her spoon but didn't start eating immediately. She was staring at a spot on the wall where the paint had chipped, revealing a darker color underneath. "Why do people hide things under other things?" she asked. And Claire felt that question land somewhere deep. She knelt beside her daughter, smoothing Lily's dark hair away from her face. "Sometimes people think the new thing looks better," she said, "but the old thing is still there, underneath." Lily considered this, then nodded and began eating her cereal with small, deliberate bites. Claire returned to the kitchen and finally flipped her phone over. 3 messages now, all from the same unknown number. The first one read, "Saw your video with that weird guy. You let him near your kid?" The second, just saying, "Be careful who you trust." The third was just a link. Claire's hands went numb. She didn't remember any video. She didn't post on social media anymore. She'd deleted everything after the divorce, after her ex-husband's girlfriend had made sure everyone in their old circle knew exactly why the marriage had ended. Her version of events delivered with surgical precision at the school fundraiser. She clicked the link before she could stop herself. It loaded slowly on her old phone, the screen flickering once before a video began playing. The quality was grainy, shot from across a room, but Claire recognized her apartment immediately. The blue couch with the tear in the left cushion, the crooked picture frame Lily had hung herself. The video showed Lily's 9th birthday party from 2 weeks ago. There were only 5 people there: Claire, Lily, Marcus, his mother Anna, and Claire's neighbor Janet from upstairs. Janet must have recorded it. In the video, Marcus was singing Happy Birthday, his voice too loud and slightly off-key, and when he finished, Lily threw her arms around his waist in a hug so fierce it made Marcus's eyes go wide with surprise before his face split into the biggest smile Claire had ever seen on him. The caption beneath the video read, "When the desperate single mom invites the grocery store weirdo to her kid's party. Can't make this up." Below that, a stream of comments, each one a small knife. "That's not normal. Someone call CPS. Why would you let an autistic man near children unsupervised? This is why she's divorced." Claire felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. The video had 62,000 views. It had been posted 37 hours ago, which meant it had been out there, circulating, while Claire had gone to work, while she'd tucked Lily into bed and read her a story about a girl who could talk to rivers, while she'd slept believing the world was still the size she could manage. She looked up and saw Lily watching her from the couch, cereal spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "Are you okay, Mum?" Claire forced her face into something resembling calm. "I'm fine, baby. Finish eating." But her voice came out strange, thin and stretched, and Lily's eyes narrowed the way they did when she was trying to solve a problem. Claire turned away and gripped the edge of the counter. Her phone kept buzzing. More messages from numbers she didn't know. A text from her supervisor at the hospital. "Need to talk to you when you get in." An email from Lily's school, requesting a meeting regarding recent concerns. The burnt toast smell lingered in the air, acrid and wrong, and Claire realized with sudden clarity that something had shifted in the night while she slept. The careful life she'd built, the one where she kept her head down and did everything right and protected Lily from the ugliness of strangers' opinions, had been cracked open by 62,000 people who thought they knew her story. She grabbed a dishcloth and wiped up the spilled milk, scrubbing at the counter with more force than necessary. The milk had already started to dry, leaving a sticky residue that wouldn't come clean with just water. Outside, a car alarm went off, then stopped. Lily brought her empty bowl to the kitchen and placed it carefully in the sink. 7 minutes, she said, because she'd been counting too. Claire pulled her daughter close, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "I love you," she whispered into Lily's hair. "I love you too," Lily said, then added, "Can we stop at the store after school? I want to show Marcus the new stone I found." Claire closed her eyes and held on tighter. "We'll see," she said, because that was all she had left. The maybe, the we'll see, the slim hope that by this afternoon the world would have forgotten them. Have you ever had a moment where everything changed while you weren't looking? What would you do if the kindness you showed someone became the reason strangers judged you? Tell me in the comments below. Claire's phone had buzzed 17 times during the drive to Lily's school, and she'd ignored every single one. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white, and when she pulled up to the drop-off lane, the crossing guard gave her a look that lasted a second too long. Claire wondered if she'd seen the video. Everyone had phones now. Everyone was always looking at something. She helped Lily out of the car, adjusting her backpack straps with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "Have a good day, sweetheart," she said, and Lily kissed her cheek before running toward the entrance where her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, stood waiting. Mrs. Patterson's smile seemed different, tighter, more careful, and Claire felt that difference like a hand pushing against her chest. The hospital where Claire worked as a phlebotomist sat on the east side of Scranton, a squat brick building that always smelled faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee. She parked in the employee lot and sat in her car for 3 full minutes, watching other staff members walk past. Nobody looked at her, nobody waved. That should have felt normal, but it didn't. The silence felt deliberate, like everyone had agreed on something without telling her. Her supervisor, Donna, had texted again during the drive, "My office, soon as you get in." Claire had worked at Valley Regional for 4 years and had never been called to Donna's office for anything except her annual review. She locked her car and walked through the employee entrance, her badge beeping as she scanned in at exactly 7:59. The break room was empty, except for Gerald from radiology, who was microwaving something that smelled like fish. He glanced up when Claire entered, then looked away quickly, suddenly fascinated by the microwave's timer. Claire poured herself coffee she didn't want and added too much cream because her hands were still unsteady. The mug was chipped on one side, a defect she'd never noticed before but couldn't stop staring at now. Gerald grabbed his container and left without saying good morning. The microwave beeped 3 times in the silence. Claire stood there holding her coffee, wondering how long it took for a person to become invisible, and realized it wasn't invisibility at all. It was the opposite. She'd become too visible in the wrong way to the wrong people. Donna's office was at the end of the administrative hallway, past medical records and billing. The door was open, but Claire knocked anyway. Donna looked up from her computer screen, and her expression did something complicated. Sympathy mixed with discomfort, mixed with the particular weariness of someone who had to deliver bad news before 9 in the morning. "Close the door," Donna said, and those 3 words made Claire's stomach drop the same way the phone notification had hours ago in her kitchen. She sat in the plastic chair across from Donna's desk and set her coffee down carefully because she didn't trust herself to hold it steady. Donna folded her hands on top of a manila folder that Claire couldn't help but notice had her name printed on the tab. "I'm going to be direct," Donna said, which was never how good conversations started. "We received a complaint this morning from a patient's family. They saw something online about you and requested a different phlebotomist for their mother's blood work. They said they didn't feel comfortable having you provide care." Claire felt the words hit her like small stones, each one leaving a mark. "What did they see?" she asked, even though she already knew. Donna shifted in her chair. "A video from a birthday party. They claimed it raised questions about your judgment." The word judgment hung in the air between them, heavy and accusatory. Claire's throat went tight. "That was my daughter's birthday. Marcus is a friend. He works at our grocery store. There's nothing inappropriate." Donna held up one hand. "I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm telling you what happened because HR is involved now, and I need you to understand the position this puts the hospital in." The position, not Claire's position. Not the fact that a private moment from her home had been weaponized by strangers. Claire felt anger flash hot in her chest, but she swallowed it down because anger never helped. Anger just made things worse. "What does HR want?" she asked, her voice coming out flat and controlled. Donna opened the folder. "They're not taking disciplinary action yet, but they want to document this conversation. And they're recommending you consider being more careful about your online presence and personal associations that could reflect poorly on the hospital's reputation." Personal associations. Claire thought about Marcus, who had spent 20 minutes at Lily's party explaining to her daughter why certain colors appeared in different orders in the electromagnetic spectrum, using crayons and construction paper to illustrate refraction. Marcus, who had given Lily a small notebook for her birthday because he'd noticed she liked to write down observations about rocks and trees and the way shadows changed throughout the day. Marcus, who had anxiety so severe some days that he couldn't leave his house, but who had come to a child's birthday party because Lily had made him a handwritten invitation with stickers on it. The hospital wanted her to be careful about associating with him. Claire felt something crack inside her chest, small but irreparable. "Am I being suspended?" she asked. Donna shook her head. "No, but I need you to sign this acknowledgement that we had this conversation." She slid a paper across the desk. Claire read it twice. The language was bureaucratic and vague, phrases like professional standards and community expectations and social media awareness. There was nothing in it about the video being taken without her permission. Nothing about the comments calling her a bad mother. Nothing about the fact that Marcus had done absolutely nothing wrong except be himself at a party where he'd been invited. Claire picked up the pen Donna offered and signed her name at the bottom, each letter feeling like a small surrender. She stood to leave, but Donna spoke again. "Claire, off the record." Claire turned back. Donna's face had softened slightly, the administrator mask slipping to reveal something more human underneath. "I have a nephew on the spectrum. What people are saying online, it's not fair, but fair doesn't matter when it goes viral. People see what they want to see, and they make up their minds in 3 seconds. I'm sorry you're dealing with this." The kindness in Donna's voice made Claire's eyes sting, and she blinked hard because she would not cry in this office, would not give this moment that kind of power over her. "Thank you," she managed, and left before Donna could say anything else that might break through the careful walls Claire had spent the morning building. Her first patient was a 78-year-old man named Walter who needed pre-surgical blood work. He settled into the chair and rolled up his sleeve without being asked, clearly a veteran of medical procedures. Claire tied the tourniquet around his upper arm and felt for a vein, her fingers working on autopilot while her brain spun in circles. Walter watched her prep the needle. "You look like you've had a morning," he said. Claire forced a smile. "Just busy." She inserted the needle cleanly, watched the dark red blood flow into the vial. Walter was quiet for a moment, then said, "My grandson's autistic. Smartest kid I know, can't tie his shoes for nothing, but he can tell you everything about trains. Everything makes some people uncomfortable." Claire's hand stilled for just a fraction of a second before she withdrew the needle and pressed gauze against the puncture site. "He sounds wonderful," Claire said, and meant it. Walter held the gauze in place while she labeled the vials. "He is, but people look at him sometimes like he's broken, like he's something that needs fixing instead of understanding." He met Claire's eyes with a directness that made her feel suddenly exposed. "You just gotta remember, the people who see problems where there ain't any, that's their failure, not yours." Claire felt her throat constrict. She didn't know if Walter had seen the video, didn't know if his words were accidental wisdom or deliberate kindness, but either way, they landed in a place that needed them. She thanked him and walked him to the door, then stood alone in the small procedure room for 30 seconds, breathing carefully through her nose until the urge to cry passed. By lunch, Claire had drawn blood from 11 patients and fielded 3 more texts from unknown numbers. One called her irresponsible, one called her worse. The third was just a screenshot of the video with a vomit emoji. She'd stopped reading them after the first 2, but she couldn't stop her phone from lighting up with each new message. In the cafeteria, she sat alone at a corner table with a salad she wasn't hungry for. Across the room, she saw Jenny and Carla from pediatrics glance her way, then lean closer together, whispering. Claire stabbed a cherry tomato with her fork and felt it burst under the pressure, red juice and seeds spreading across the white plate in a pattern that looked disturbingly organic. Her phone rang, not a text this time, an actual call from Lily's school. Claire's heart jumped into her throat. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Donovan, this is Principal Fletcher. We need you to come pick up Lily. There's been an incident." The word incident made Claire's vision narrow. "Is she hurt?" "No, she's not hurt. But there was an altercation with another student, and we need to discuss it in person. Can you be here in the next 30 minutes? Claire was already standing, dumping her uneaten salad in the trash. "I'm on my way," she said, and walked out of the cafeteria without clocking out, without telling anyone where she was going, the concerned voices of the people she worked with fading behind her like static from a radio station losing signal. Lily was sitting on the bench outside Principal Fletcher's office when Claire arrived, her small body hunched forward with her hands tucked between her knees. There was a red mark on her left cheek, faint but visible, and her eyes were swollen in the way that meant she'd been crying hard. Claire dropped to her knees in front of her daughter, hands hovering over Lily's face without quite touching. "What happened?" Lily's lower lip trembled. "Madison said Marcus is a freak. She said you're stupid for letting him touch me." Principal Fletcher appeared in the doorway, a tall woman with silver hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. "Miss Donovan, please come in." Claire kissed Lily's forehead and followed Fletcher into the office. The principal closed the door and gestured to a chair, but Claire remained standing. "Why does my daughter have a mark on her face?" Fletcher's expression tightened. "Madison Thompson pushed Lily during recess. Lily responded by hitting Madison in the shoulder. Both girls are being disciplined according to our anti-violence policy." Claire felt heat rise up her neck. "Madison called my daughter and our friend names. She physically touched Lily first, and you're treating them equally?" Fletcher sat behind her desk and opened a file. "Lily struck another student. That's a violation regardless of provocation. She'll be suspended for 2 days." The word suspended hit Claire like cold water. She's 9 years old and she was defending herself. Fletcher's voice took on that particular tone of bureaucratic finality. "The Thompsons are very upset. Mrs. Thompson saw the video from your daughter's party and expressed concerns to several other parents. The video, always the video." Claire's hands curled into fists at her sides. "So this is really about me, about a birthday party in my own home." Fletcher adjusted her glasses. "This is about Lily's behavior today, but I'll be frank. Several parents have reached out with questions. They're worried about the judgment of a parent who allows an autistic adult to interact closely with children. Given the current climate around child safety." Claire cut her off. "Marcus has never done anything inappropriate. He's kind to Lily. He's teaching her things. This is discrimination." Fletcher's face hardened. "I'm trying to help you understand the optics of the situation. Parents talk. They share concerns. Whether those concerns are valid or not, they create an environment that affects all the students. I'm recommending you consider distancing yourself from situations that might generate more attention." Claire felt something snap inside her, clean and irreversible. "You want me to stop seeing Marcus because other parents are uncomfortable with his disability. Do you hear yourself?" Fletcher stood. "I'm suggesting you protect your daughter from becoming the subject of gossip." Claire walked to the door and opened it. Lily looked up, her face still streaked with tears. "Come on, baby. We're leaving," Fletcher called after her. "Miss Donovan, we haven't finished discussing the suspension." Claire didn't turn around. "You've said enough." She took Lily's hand and walked through the school's main office, past the secretary who suddenly found her computer screen fascinating. Outside, the October air was crisp and smelled like wood smoke. Lily climbed into the car and buckled herself in. "Am I in trouble?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain in a way that made Claire's chest ache. "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble." Claire started the car but didn't pull away immediately. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from rage so pure and focused it felt like electricity in her veins. Lily had defended herself and was being punished. Marcus had committed no crime except being different, and strangers had decided that made him dangerous. Claire had done nothing wrong, and yet the world was closing in around her like walls, shrinking in a nightmare. She looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror. "Do you want to go see Marcus?" Lily's face transformed, hope breaking through the sadness like sun through storm clouds. "Really?" Claire put the car in drive. "Really? They drove to Main Street Grocery, the same store Claire had been going to for 3 years, where she knew which aisles creaked and which checkout lanes moved fastest. The parking lot was half empty on a Monday morning. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed their usual drone, and a radio somewhere played classic rock too quietly to identify the song. Claire spotted Marcus immediately. He was in the canned goods aisle, kneeling on the floor with a box cutter, opening a shipment of tomato sauce. Lily ran ahead, her sadness momentarily forgotten. "Marcus!" He looked up and his whole face changed, tension melting into something softer. "Lily, it's Monday. You should be at school." Lily skidded to a stop in front of him. "I got suspended for 2 days because I hit Madison after she called you a freak." Marcus's expression did something complicated. Surprise, then confusion, then something that looked like pain. He set down the box cutter carefully and stood. "You shouldn't hit people because of words. Words are just sounds shaped a certain way. They can't actually hurt you." But Claire saw the lie in his eyes, saw the way his hands had started to fidget with the hem of his store vest. Words could hurt. Words had been hurting him his entire life. She walked closer. "Marcus, have you seen the video?" His eyes flicked to her face, then away. "My mom showed me. She was upset. She called the woman who posted it, but the woman said it was public space so she could film whatever she wanted." His voice was level, almost flat, but Claire heard the tremor underneath. "People are saying things that aren't true. They're saying I shouldn't be around children. They're saying you're a bad mother for inviting me." Lily grabbed Marcus's hand, something she'd never done before. "You're not bad. You're my friend. You taught me about organizing and color wavelengths and how to remember which rocks are sedimentary." Marcus looked down at their joined hands like he was seeing a miracle. "I remember teaching you those things. I liked teaching you. It made me feel useful." His voice cracked on the last word. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "You are useful. You're important. And anyone who says otherwise is wrong." Marcus finally met her gaze fully. "Then why does it feel like everyone believes them instead of you?" The question hung in the air between them, unanswerable because the truth was too ugly. People believed comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. A woman turned into their aisle, saw them standing there, and immediately pivoted away. Marcus noticed, his shoulders hunched inward. "That's been happening since yesterday. People look at me different now. My manager asked if I wanted to take a few days off. He said it very nicely, but I understood what he meant. He meant maybe I should hide until people forget." Claire felt her anger shift, redirecting from the nebulous mass of strangers towards something more specific, the cruelty of visibility. Marcus knelt back down beside his box of tomato sauce cans, but he didn't pick up the box cutter. He just sat there, surrounded by rows of organized products that made sense in ways people never did. Lily sat down next to him. "When I get sad, my mom says I can't control what other people think, but I can control what I know is true. Do you know what's true?" Marcus looked at her, this small girl who had befriended him without agenda, without judgment. "I know you're kind. I know your mother works hard. I know I wasn't doing anything wrong at your birthday party." Lily nodded. "That's 3 true things. That's more than Madison knows." Claire crouched beside them both. "Marcus, what you said about hiding, you don't have to do that. You don't owe anyone invisibility." He shook his head slowly. "But it's easier. For everyone. My mum's been crying. My sister won't answer my calls. Even my neighbors look at me like I might do something unpredictable." He picked up a can of tomato sauce and turned it in his hands. "The expiration date on this is wrong. It's in the wrong spot on the label. Someone at the factory made a mistake, but the can still works fine. It's still good inside. But if I put it on the shelf, someone will complain about the label being wrong, and the store will have to pull the whole shipment." The metaphor was so heartbreakingly clear that Claire had to look away. Lily, however, took the can from Marcus's hands. Then we'll buy this one, so it doesn't get thrown away for something it can't help. She stood and carried the can toward the front of the store like it was precious cargo. Marcus watched her go, then turned to Claire. I've been thinking about deleting my social media account. I only made it last year because my therapist said it might help me connect with people, but now I think maybe connecting with people is too dangerous. Too many ways to be misunderstood. Claire wanted to tell him he was wrong, wanted to say the world wasn't that cruel, but she couldn't lie. Instead, she said, "Don't decide today. Don't decide while you're hurt." Marcus nodded, but his eyes were distant, already retreating to that place where he felt safe from judgment. He picked up the box cutter and resumed opening the shipment, his movements mechanical and precise. Claire understood she was being dismissed, not unkindly, but firmly. Marcus needed to be alone with his cans and his system and his routine. That made sense. She found Lily at the checkout, clutching the tomato sauce can. They paid for it and left, and as they walked through the parking lot, Claire wondered how many other small connections were being severed across town, how many people were learning to make themselves smaller because the world had decided their normal was too strange to tolerate. The video hit 100,000 views on Tuesday afternoon while Claire was folding laundry in her living room. She only knew because her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Old co-workers, distant cousins, someone from her high school graduating class who she barely remembered. They all wanted to check in with the same transparent curiosity that felt like vultures circling. Claire turned her phone off completely and focused on matching Lily's socks, finding comfort in the simple task of pairing things that belonged together. Lily had been quiet since the suspension, spending hours rearranging her stone collection with an intensity that worried Claire. She'd create elaborate patterns on the living room floor, photograph them with Claire's old camera, then dismantle everything and start over. When Claire asked what she was making, Lily said she was trying to find the arrangement that felt most true. Claire didn't know what that meant, but she recognized the obsessive quality of it, the need to control something when everything else felt chaotic. She sat on the floor beside her daughter and picked up a smooth black stone. "Can I help?" Lily considered this seriously. "You can hand me stones when I point, but you can't suggest patterns. The pattern has to come from inside." Claire nodded and became her daughter's assistant, passing stones on command, while Lily built and rebuilt her small universes. They worked in silence for 20 minutes, until Lily suddenly said, "I want to make Marcus a birthday gift." Claire's hands stilled. "When's his birthday?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know, but everyone should have a birthday gift from someone who loves them. That's the rule." The simple certainty in her voice made Claire's throat tight. That evening, Lily spent an hour at the kitchen table, making a card from construction paper and markers. She drew Marcus standing in the grocery store aisle, surrounded by perfectly organized cans, all labeled with careful detail. Above his head, she wrote in her careful 9-year-old handwriting, "For Marcus, the best teacher of true things." Claire watched from the doorway, overwhelmed by her daughter's capacity for loyalty. Lily had been called names, suspended from school, and made the target of gossip, and her response was to make art for the person everyone blamed. Claire wondered where children learned that kind of courage, and why adults so often forgot it. Wednesday morning brought a new development. Claire's ex-husband Derek called, which he never did unless he wanted something or had heard something that made him feel entitled to an opinion. Claire let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third attempt. "What, Derek?" His voice came through tight and accusatory. "I heard about some video, about you and Lily. People are talking, Claire. My mother called me. She said you're letting some mentally disabled guy hang around our daughter." The phrase, "our daughter," made Claire's jaw clench. Derek hadn't exercised his custody rights in 5 months. Marcus is autistic, not mentally disabled, and he's been nothing but kind to Lily. Unlike her father, who forgot her birthday completely. Derek made a dismissive sound. "Don't turn this into an attack on me. I'm trying to figure out if I need to file for emergency custody. You're all over the internet looking irresponsible, and I have a right to make sure my kid is safe." Claire's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles went white. "You pay exactly $0 in child support. You've seen Lily twice since July. You don't get to suddenly play concerned parent because of a video taken at a party you weren't invited to." Derek's voice rose. "A party with a stranger who has a disability that affects his judgment. Do you even know if he's been background checked? What if he's dangerous?" Claire felt something cold settle in her stomach. "He stocks groceries, Derek. He's worked at the same store for 6 years. He has a master's degree in library science that he can't use because interviews make him too anxious. He's the gentlest person I've ever met, and the fact that you're calling him dangerous because he's autistic says everything about you and nothing about him." Silence. Then Derek's voice came back lower, more calculated. "I'm documenting this conversation for when I talk to my lawyer." He hung up before Claire could respond. She stood in her kitchen holding her dead phone, feeling the walls close in further. Derek had never wanted custody. He'd fought against it during the divorce, claiming his work schedule couldn't accommodate a child. But threatening to pursue it now gave him leverage, gave him a way to punish Claire for embarrassing him by association. She set the phone on the counter and walked to Lily's room. Her daughter was awake, sitting up in bed with a book about geology open on her lap. "Was that Dad?" Lily asked without looking up. Claire nodded. "He's worried about you, that's all." Lily turned a page. "He's not worried about me. He's worried about what people think about him." The observation was so precise and adult that Claire felt momentarily off balance. She sat on the edge of Lily's bed. "How do you know that?" Lily finally looked up from her book. "Because he never asks what I think or how I feel. He only asks about grades and if I'm behaving. That's not worried. That's just checking boxes so he can tell people he cares." Claire pulled her daughter into a hug, marveling at how someone so small could see so clearly through the performances adults created. Thursday, Claire returned to work and discovered someone had left a printout of the video on her locker. No note, just the image of Marcus and Lily hugging, frozen mid-embrace. Claire crumpled it into a ball and threw it in the trash, then spent her shift avoiding eye contact with everyone. During lunch, she sat in her car instead of the cafeteria and Googled, "Can employer fire for viral video?" The results were discouraging. At-will employment meant her job existed only as long as the hospital wanted to keep her. And hospitals cared very much about reputation. Her phone rang. Anna, Marcus's mother. Claire answered immediately. "Anna, hi." The older woman's voice was strained. "Claire, I need to tell you something. Marcus hasn't left the house since Monday. He won't eat much. He just sits in his room reorganizing his books over and over. His therapist had an emergency session with him yesterday, and she's concerned. She asked me what triggered this episode, and I had to tell her about the video and what people are saying." Claire felt guilt crash over her like a wave. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't invited him—" "Stop." Anna's voice was firm. "You didn't do anything wrong. Neither did Marcus. Neither did Lily. But I need you to know that Marcus is talking about never going back to the store. He's convinced everyone there hates him now, even though his manager called twice to say his job is secure. He's retreating, and I've seen him do this before. It takes months to bring him back." Claire's chest felt tight. "What can I do?" Anna was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. But Marcus keeps asking if Lily hates him now. He's fixated on the idea that he caused problems for your family and that Lily regrets being his friend." Claire made a decision. "Can we come over? This afternoon. Lily made something for him." Anna's breath hitched. "Yes, please. Maybe seeing Lily will help him understand this isn't his fault." They agreed on 4 o'clock. When Claire picked Lily up from Mrs. Chen's apartment, their neighbour who'd agreed to watch her during the suspension, she explained they were visiting Marcus. Lily's whole face brightened. She ran back into Mrs. Chen's apartment and emerged with the card she'd made, now carefully placed in a plastic sleeve for protection. "I'm ready," she announced, as if visiting a friend in crisis required the same preparation as a formal event. The drive to Marcus's house took 15 minutes through neighborhoods Claire barely knew. Anna lived in a small ranch home with a meticulous front garden, roses in graduated heights, a bird bath positioned at the exact center of the lawn. She answered the door, looking exhausted. "Thank you for coming," she said, stepping aside to let them in. The house was quiet and smelled like cinnamon. Anna led them down a hallway lined with family photos, Marcus at various ages, always slightly apart from the other people in the frame, his smile uncertain even in happy moments. "He's in his room." "Second door on the left." Claire knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again. "Marcus, it's Claire and Lily." A pause, then his voice muffled. "I don't want to talk about the video." Lily stepped forward and pressed her palm against the door. "I brought you something. Something I made. Will you please open the door?" Silence stretched so long, Claire thought he might not respond. Then the lock clicked. The door opened 3 inches. Marcus's face appeared in the gap, and Claire's heart broke at the sight of him. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair uncombed, his expression hollow in a way she'd never seen before. Lily held up the card. "This is you in the store, doing what you do best. I drew it because I wanted you to remember that some people see you the right way, the true way." Marcus opened the door wider and took the card with shaking hands. He stared at Lily's drawing for a long time, his thumb tracing the careful lines she'd made around the cans on the shelves. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. "You drew me smiling, but I haven't smiled in 4 days." Lily nodded seriously. "I know. That's why I drew you smiling, so you'd remember how." Marcus invited them into his room, which looked exactly like Claire had imagined, books organized by subject, and then alphabetically within each category, a desk with pencils arranged by length, a bed made with hospital corners so precise they could have been measured with a ruler. He sat on the floor with his back against the bed frame, still holding Lily's card. Lily sat across from him without hesitation, crossing her legs and waiting. Claire remained standing near the door, suddenly feeling like an intruder in a moment that belonged to them. Marcus traced the drawing again. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Lily tilted her head, genuinely confused. "Why would I be afraid of you?" Marcus's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Because that's what the internet says, that I'm dangerous, that I might hurt children, that people like me shouldn't be trusted around kids because we don't understand social rules." He looked up at Claire, his face twisted with something between shame and desperation. "I read the comments, all of them, 1,432 comments, and 891 of them said I was either creepy or dangerous or wrong for being at that party." The specificity of his count made Claire's stomach turn. Lily reached out and touched his knee, a small gesture that made Marcus flinch before he relaxed. "Those people don't know you. They're talking about a pretend person they made up in their heads. You're real. I know real you. Real you taught me about metamorphic rocks and why organizer cans, by color makes shopping faster, and how some people think in pictures instead of words. Real you gave me a notebook for my birthday because you noticed I like to write things down, pretend you doesn't exist except in mean people's imaginations." Marcus closed his eyes and 2 tears slid down his cheeks. Claire knelt beside them both. "Marcus, I need you to hear me. This situation is not your fault. You were invited to a party. You came. You were yourself. Those are not crimes." Marcus opened his eyes. "But being myself caused problems for you and Lily. That's what my therapist is trying to help me understand. That even when I don't mean to cause harm, my existence sometimes does, because other people can't handle difference." She says I need to accept that and learn to protect myself by being more careful about when and where I'm visible. The resignation in his voice was devastating. Anna appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. That's not exactly what she said, Marcus. She said you need boundaries to protect your mental health, not that you need to hide. Marcus shook his head. It's the same thing, Mom. Boundaries mean knowing which spaces are safe. And apparently a 9-year-old's birthday party isn't safe because someone decided to film it and turn me into evidence of poor parenting. He looked at Claire. Your ex-husband called my mother. Did you know that? He asked her if I'd ever been arrested, if I'd ever been institutionalized, if there was a reason I couldn't hold down a normal job. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. When? Anna's expression was grim. Tuesday evening. He got my number from somewhere, probably the internet, since everything's on there now. He wanted to know if Marcus posed a threat to Lily. I told him Marcus has never hurt anyone in his life, but he kept pushing. He asked about medications, about episodes, about supervision, like Marcus was a dangerous animal that needed monitoring. Her voice shook with barely contained rage. Marcus stood abruptly and walked to his bookshelf, running his fingers along the spines without actually selecting one. I don't want to cause you more problems. Lily stood too. You're not a problem. The problem is people who think different is the same as dangerous. My teacher says diversity makes the world interesting, but then she lets Madison call you names and doesn't do anything except punish me for defending you. That's hypocrisy. I learned that word last month. Marcus turned back to her, and something like a smile ghosted across his face. You hit someone because of me. I can't decide if that makes me feel protected or guilty. Lily shrugged. Feel both. People are complicated. That's what my mom always says. We contain multitudes. She pronounced the last word carefully, proud of using it correctly. Claire's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. Marcus noticed. You can check it. I know you're dealing with your own fallout from this. But Claire shook her head. Right now I'm here. Everything else can wait. The phone buzzed again, then again in rapid succession. Anna frowned. Maybe you should check. It might be important. Claire reluctantly pulled out her phone and felt her heart sink. 6 texts from her supervisor, Donna. The last one read simply, "Call me ASAP." Claire stepped into the hallway and dialed. Donna answered on the first ring. Where are you right now? I'm visiting a friend. Why? What happened? Donna's voice was tight. The video was featured on a local news segment. They didn't use your name, but they showed the footage and interviewed parents about concerns regarding vulnerable adults in childcare settings. HR wants to see you tomorrow morning at 8. Claire, they're building a case. You need to prepare yourself. The words hit like physical blows. Claire leaned against the wall. I haven't done anything wrong. Donna sighed. I know. But the hospital is scared of liability. They're scared of losing donors. They're scared of association. I'm telling you this as a friend. Start looking for another job. Claire ended the call and stood in Anna's hallway, staring at a framed photo of Marcus as a teenager, his face younger, but his eyes holding the same careful uncertainty. She thought about her dwindling savings account, about rent due in 2 weeks, about Lily's school refusing to let her return without a meeting with a counselor, about Derek's threat to pursue custody, about the way strangers felt entitled to judge every decision she made based on 90 seconds of video taken without her permission. The walls weren't just closing in anymore, they were crushing the air from her lungs. When she returned to Marcus's room, all 3 of them were sitting on the floor. Lily had her stone collection spread between them, and Marcus was helping her organize them by geological classification. He looked up when Claire entered, and his expression shifted immediately. Something bad happened. It wasn't a question. Claire tried to smile but couldn't manage it. Just work stuff, nothing for you to worry about. But Marcus stood and walked over to her, maintaining careful distance but holding eye contact in that deliberate way she knew cost him effort. This is because of me, because you were kind to me. No, Claire said firmly. This is because the world is cruel to people who don't fit in boxes. This is because strangers think they have the right to police other people's lives. This is because a woman at my daughter's party decided her entertainment was more important than our privacy. But it is not because of you. Marcus's hands were fidgeting again, fingers tapping against his thighs in a pattern only he could hear. I want to do something. I need to do something. But I don't know what. I'm good at organizing things. I'm good at research. I'm good at finding patterns in data. But I'm not good at fixing social problems or changing people's minds or making viral videos go away. Lily stood and joined them. She looked up at Marcus with absolute seriousness. Maybe you don't need to make it go away. Maybe you need to make something else, something truer. Marcus looked confused. I don't understand. Lily glanced at her mother, then back at Marcus. You're good with words when you write them down. Mom showed me the report you wrote for the store about efficient stocking methods. You explained everything so clearly. What if you wrote down the truth about what happened? What if you told your side? Claire's breath caught. Marcus was already shaking his head. Nobody would listen. Nobody cares what I have to say. But Claire saw something flicker in his eyes. Not quite hope, but maybe the shadow of possibility. Anna had moved to the doorway, listening. Marcus, baby, Lily might be right. You've always been able to express yourself better in writing, and you've never been one to let inaccuracy stand without correction. Marcus looked around at the three of them. These people who had somehow become tangled in his life in ways he'd never anticipated. If I wrote something, it would have to be completely honest. I can't do nuance. I can't do strategic messaging. I can only do literal truth. Claire felt something shift in her chest. Maybe that's exactly what this situation needs. Marcus spent Friday locked in his room with his laptop, and Anna reported hearing the keyboard clicking steadily for hours. Claire went to her meeting with HR that morning, where two administrators she'd never met before sat across from her with folders and practiced expressions of concern. They used words like optics and stakeholder confidence and community perception, while never once saying what they actually meant. We're going to fire you because you make us nervous. They placed her on paid administrative leave, pending an investigation into whether her personal conduct violated the hospital's ethics code. Claire signed the papers because she had no choice. She picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment and drove aimlessly for 20 minutes before ending up at the park near their building. It was nearly empty on a cold October afternoon. Just an elderly man walking a small dog and a teenage couple on a bench, pretending not to notice the world around them. Claire sat on a swing while Lily climbed the jungle gym, her daughter's bright red jacket visible against the grey sky. Claire's phone sat heavy in her pocket. She'd turned off notifications, but could still feel the phantom buzz of judgment accumulating in digital space, strangers discussing her fitness as a mother like it was a spectator sport. Lily appeared beside her, slightly out of breath. "Mum, do you think Marcus is really writing something?" Claire pushed herself gently on the swing. "I think so. His mom said he's been working on it non-stop." Lily sat on the swing next to her, dragging her feet in the mulch. What if people are mean about what he writes too? What if they make more videos making fun of him? The question hung between them, heavy with a child's clear-eyed understanding of cruelty. Claire didn't have a good answer. "Then we'll deal with it. But at least he'll have told his truth. Nobody can take that away." That evening Anna called. "He's finished. He wrote something. He wants to show you before he posts it anywhere." Claire felt a spike of anxiety. Does he really want to put himself out there again, after everything? Anna's voice was careful. "I asked him the same thing. He said hiding hasn't helped. He said maybe visibility is the only way through. But Claire, what he wrote, it's raw. It's honest in ways that might make people uncomfortable. I'm worried about how it'll be received." Claire closed her eyes. "Can we come over tomorrow morning?" Anna agreed. After hanging up, Claire found Lily already in pajamas, reading on her bed. "We're seeing Marcus tomorrow. He wrote something." Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. Claire made pancakes that neither of them ate much of, both too nervous about what Marcus had created. They drove to Anna's house at 9, finding Marcus already awake and dressed, sitting at the dining room table with his laptop open. He looked better than he had on Thursday, showered, composed, but his leg was bouncing rapidly under the table. When they entered, he closed the laptop. "I need to read it out loud first, before I show you. I need to hear how it sounds." His voice was steadier than Claire expected, like he'd found some reservoir of certainty in the writing process. Anna brought coffee for Claire and orange juice for Lily. They settled around the table. Marcus opened his laptop and stared at the screen for a long moment before speaking. "I've never posted anything personal online before. My therapist always said social media might be challenging for me because I struggle with ambiguity and people often mean something different than what they literally say. But I realize that's exactly why I need to do this, because I can only communicate in literal truth, and maybe that's what this situation needs." He took a deep breath. "The title is What It Means When You Call Me Dangerous." He began reading. His voice was measured and precise, each word carefully enunciated. He wrote about what it felt like to be autistic in a world designed for neurotypical people. The constant work of translation, the exhaustion of masking, the loneliness of being perpetually misunderstood. He wrote about working at the grocery store, how organizing products gave him a sense of control in a chaotic world, how most customers never looked him in the eye, but that was okay because he understood they had their own struggles. He wrote about meeting Lily, how she'd asked him questions without judgment, how her curiosity had felt like acceptance. Claire felt tears gathering as she listened. Then Marcus read the section about the birthday party. He described receiving the invitation, how he'd held it for 3 hours, trying to decide if accepting would be appropriate, how he'd asked his mother 5 times if she thought Claire really wanted him there or was just being polite. He wrote about arriving at the apartment, noticing how small it was and understanding immediately that Claire worked hard to provide for Lily, that this party was offered from limited resources and therefore meant even more. He wrote about singing Happy Birthday, how his voice came out wrong because he'd never learned to modulate it correctly, but how Lily's hug had made him feel human in a way he hadn't felt in years. "And then I wrote about what happened after," Marcus continued, his voice roughening slightly. He detailed finding out about the video, reading the comments, watching his existence be debated by thousands of people who'd never met him. He quoted specific comments, the ones calling him a predator, a freak, a danger to children. He explained what each one had made him feel: shame, confusion, rage, despair. He wrote about his mother crying, about staying in bed for 2 days, about the manager at work looking at him differently even while assuring him his job was safe. He wrote about Derek's phone call to Anna, the questions about institutionalization and medication, the assumption that autism equaled unpredictability, equaled threat. But the most powerful section came near the end. Marcus wrote about what the video had stolen from him, not just his sense of safety or his public reputation, but something more fundamental. "You took away the possibility that I might be seen as just a person," he read. "Before that video, I was Marcus, who works at the grocery store. Now I'm the autistic man from the viral video. You made my disability the only thing about me that matters. You reduced me to a diagnostic label and then decided that label meant dangerous. You didn't ask what I thought or felt. You didn't consider that I might have my own interior life as complex as yours. You saw me hug a child and created an entire narrative about predation that exists nowhere except in your imagination." He looked up from the screen. "Then I wrote about Lily. about how she made me a card when everyone else was calling me a monster, about how a 9-year-old child understood something thousands of adults couldn't grasp. That different doesn't mean dangerous. That autism doesn't erase personhood. That kindness is a choice we make regardless of someone's neurological wiring. His eyes found Lily's. I wrote that if the world was run by 9-year-old girls with rock collections and fierce loyalty, we'd probably have a lot fewer problems. Lily's face flushed pink with pride. Marcus closed the laptop. That's what I wrote. 1,500 words. No euphemisms, no softening, just truth. The silence that followed felt enormous. Anna was crying quietly into a tissue. Claire's throat was too tight to speak immediately. Finally, she managed, "Marcus, that's extraordinary, that's powerful, but are you sure you want to put that out into the world? The same people who attacked you before might attack you again." Marcus met her eyes with unexpected calm. "They're already attacking me. At least this way they'll be attacking something real instead of something they invented. At least this way I'll have said what I needed to say. My therapist calls it reclaiming narrative. I call it refusing to be erased." His hands were steady on the laptop. "I'm going to post it. Today. Right now. Before I lose courage." Marcus created a simple blog on a free platform, uploaded his essay with no images or formatting beyond basic paragraphs, and hit publish at 10:37 that Saturday morning. He didn't share it on social media immediately. Instead, he sent the link to Claire, Anna, and his sister Rachel, who lived in Pittsburgh. Then he closed his laptop and announced he needed to go for a walk. Anna started to protest. Marcus rarely walked alone, especially when anxious, but Claire touched her arm gently. "Let him go. He needs to be away from screens right now." They watched through the window as Marcus headed down the sidewalk with his hands in his jacket pockets, his gait slightly uneven in that way that marked him as different, even from a distance. Lily pressed her face against the glass. "He's brave," she said quietly. Anna wiped her eyes. "He is. I just hope the world recognizes that." Claire's phone buzzed. Rachel had texted, "Holy shit, Marcus wrote this? It's incredible. I'm sharing it everywhere." Claire showed Anna, who managed a weak smile. "Rachel has 2,000 followers on Twitter. That's something." By noon, the essay had been shared 43 times. By 2 o'clock, 218. Claire watched the numbers climb on the analytics page Marcus had left open on his laptop, feeling simultaneously hopeful and terrified. Each share was a potential shield or a potential target. She couldn't tell which. Lily had fallen asleep on Anna's couch, exhausted from the emotional weight of the week. Anna made sandwiches nobody ate. Marcus returned from his walk at 3:15, his cheeks red from cold, and immediately asked, "How many people have read it?" Claire told him. His face went carefully blank. "That's more than I expected." The first media inquiry came at 4:30. A reporter from a disability rights blog wanted to interview Marcus about his experience. Anna fielded the call while Marcus paced in the kitchen, his anxiety visibly rising. "I don't know how to be interviewed," he said to Claire. "I don't know how to answer questions when I can't prepare the answers in advance." Claire understood that fear, the terror of being misquoted or having your words twisted into something you didn't mean. "You don't have to do it. The essay speaks for itself." But Marcus shook his head. "If I don't speak, someone else will speak for me." That's what the video taught me. He agreed to an email interview only, with permission to review his answers before publication. The reporter sent 5 questions that evening. Marcus spent 2 hours crafting responses, reading each one aloud to make sure they conveyed his actual meaning. Claire sat with him, occasionally suggesting simpler phrasing when his sentences became too technical or abstract. It was intimate work, this translation of Marcus's precise internal language into something more accessible. She felt honored to be trusted with it, and guilty that the trust was necessary, that the world couldn't simply meet Marcus where he was. By Sunday morning, the essay had 12,000 shares. The comment section on the blog had filled with responses that ranged from supportive to cruel, though the ratio was better than the original video. Maybe 70% kind, 30% vicious. Marcus read every single comment. Claire tried to stop him, but he insisted. I need to know what people actually think, not what they pretend to think, not the sanitized version, the truth. So she sat with him while he catalogued the responses. Messages from other autistic adults thanking him for his honesty, parents apologizing for their own prejudices, educators sharing the essay with their students. But also people calling him manipulative, claiming the essay was ghostwritten, suggesting he was playing victim to gain sympathy. Someone started a thread questioning whether Marcus had the intellectual capacity to write at that level, which sparked a secondary debate about intelligence and autism that completely missed the point of what he'd written. Marcus's jaw tightened as he read that section. They can't even insult me accurately. They're insulting a version of autism that exists in their stereotypes, not the actual person I am. Claire wanted to close the laptop to protect him from the dissection of his humanity, but Marcus was resolute. This is the cost of visibility. I'm learning to pay it. The essay caught the attention of a podcaster who specialized in social justice issues. She reached out asking if Marcus would do a live interview. This time Anna was firm. Absolutely not. Live means unpredictable. Marcus needs structure. But Marcus surprised them by considering it. What if it reaches more people? What if someone hears me talk and realizes autistic people aren't the monolith they imagine? He looked at Claire. What would you do? She thought carefully before answering. I'd ask what you have to gain versus what you might lose. And I'd trust your gut, not external pressure. Marcus spent Monday morning researching the podcaster, her previous episodes, her interview style, her audience demographics. He created a spreadsheet analyzing the potential benefits and risks, color-coding each factor by severity. At noon, he called the podcaster and agreed to a pre-recorded interview with the stipulation that he could request edits before it aired. She agreed. The interview was scheduled for Wednesday. Marcus immediately began preparing, writing out potential questions and practicing answers in front of a mirror. Anna watched him with a mixture of pride and worry. He's changing, she told Claire over coffee. This situation is forcing him to grow in ways I'm not sure he's ready for. Tuesday brought unexpected news. A legal advocacy group specializing in disability rights and privacy violations had seen the essay. They contacted Claire directly, having tracked down her information through the original video. The lawyer on the phone introduced herself as Patricia Chen. Ms. Donovan, we believe you and Marcus have grounds for a lawsuit against the woman who filmed and posted the video without consent. Pennsylvania has privacy laws that protect against this kind of exploitation. We'd like to represent you both pro bono. Claire felt her heart race. Would that make things worse? More public? Patricia's voice was calm. Possibly, but it would also send a message that people can't weaponize disability for clicks without consequences. Claire brought the information to Marcus that evening. He sat on his bed with his laptop, reviewing the interview questions he'd prepared. When she explained about the lawsuit, his hands stilled on the keyboard. I don't want revenge. I want understanding. Claire sat beside him. What if the lawsuit helps create understanding? What if it protects the next person from having their private moment turned into entertainment? Marcus was quiet for a long time, his eyes distant. Finally, he said, My whole life people have made decisions about me, what I can handle, what I can't, where I should be, who I should be around. If I do this lawsuit, I'm making a decision about myself. I'm saying I matter enough to fight for. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay in her dark bedroom, thinking about the chain of events that had started with a simple birthday invitation, and had somehow grown into something much larger. a referendum on acceptance, on privacy, on the price of being different in a world that demanded conformity. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silenced but still glowing with notifications she'd stopped reading. Derek had texted twice more with threats about custody. The hospital's HR department had sent a formal letter requesting documentation of her relationship with Marcus, as if friendship required justification. The walls weren't just closing in anymore. They were being reinforced with legal language and institutional suspicion. But somewhere in Wilkes Bar, Marcus was asleep in his carefully organized room, having spent the day preparing to speak his truth out loud to strangers who might mock him or might finally hear him. And in Claire's living room, a card with a drawing of a smiling man, stacking cans, sat propped against a lamp. Evidence that some people still knew how to see clearly. The podcast interview aired Wednesday at 6 in the evening, and within an hour, Marcus's essay had jumped to 50,000 shares. The podcaster had done something Claire hadn't expected. She'd opened the episode by playing audio from the original viral video, letting listeners hear Marcus singing off-key and Lily's delighted laughter. Then she'd read portions of Marcus's essay in her own voice before introducing him. The contrast was devastating and effective. Listeners heard the mockery, then heard the human cost of that mockery explained in Marcus's careful, literal language. Marcus had been nervous during the recording, his answers sometimes too long or circling back to earlier points, but the podcaster had edited thoughtfully, keeping the essence of his voice while tightening the pace. When she asked him what he wanted people to understand about autism, Marcus had said something that Claire knew would stick with listeners. "I'm not broken. I'm translated poorly. The world speaks one language and my brain speaks another, and instead of learning my language, people just decide I'm defective. But translation goes both ways. Maybe the world is broken in ways I can see clearly because I'm not fluent in its particular kind of dysfunction." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus's blog crashed from traffic within 2 hours. Twitter exploded with the hashtag someone had created, Chuck's translated poorly. Autistic adults began sharing their own stories using Marcus's phrase as a framework. Parents of autistic children posted tearful videos thanking Marcus for putting words to experiences they'd struggled to articulate. Advocates amplified the essay to their networks. By midnight, Marcus's words had reached over 200,000 people, and the number kept climbing while he slept fitfully in his organized room, unaware that he'd accidentally started a movement. Thursday morning, Claire woke to her phone ringing at 7. It was Patricia Chen, the lawyer. "Have you seen the news?" Claire hadn't. She'd learned to avoid morning news as a form of self-preservation. Patricia's voice vibrated with barely contained excitement. ABC Philadelphia picked up the story. They interviewed disability rights experts about the case. They called what happened to you and Marcus a civil rights issue disguised as viral entertainment. The woman who posted the video has deleted all her social media accounts. "Claire, the tide is turning." Claire sat up in bed, her heart pounding. "What does that mean for us?" "It means public opinion is shifting in your favor. It means the hospital is going to have a harder time justifying your suspension. It means your ex-husband's custody threat looks even more petty and vindictive than it already did." Patricia paused. "And it means Marcus's voice is being heard. Really heard. Not interpreted or filtered or dismissed. Heard." Claire felt something crack open in her chest, something that might have been hope, or might have been the release of pressure she'd been holding for 2 weeks. She thanked Patricia and ended the call, then sat in the early morning light streaming through her bedroom window, trying to understand that the nightmare might be ending. But when she checked Marcus's blog, she found his latest post had gone up at 3 in the morning. Apparently, he hadn't been sleeping either. This one was shorter, more raw. He wrote about the podcast experience, about how exhausting it was to perform normalcy for an audience while simultaneously trying to be authentic. He wrote about reading every comment again, about the ones that thanked him and the ones that still called him dangerous. He ended with a question. If I have to work this hard to be seen as human, what does that say about your definition of humanity? The post had 10,000 shares by 9. Claire called Anna to check on Marcus and found him awake but drained. He's not eating, Anna said quietly. He's just sitting at his laptop watching the numbers go up. I think he's overwhelmed. Claire understood that particular paralysis. The shock of suddenly mattering to strangers, of having your pain validated by thousands of people you'd never meet. Can I talk to him? Anna put Marcus on the phone. His voice was hoarse. It's too much. All of it. People want me to be a spokesperson now. Someone started a petition asking me to speak at disability conferences. I just wanted to tell the truth about one party. I didn't want this. Claire chose her words carefully. You don't owe anyone more than you've already given. You wrote your truth. That's enough. But Marcus made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. But what if it's not? What if I stop now and nothing actually changes? What if the hospital still fires you, and your ex still tries to take Lily, and people still think I'm dangerous? The questions tumbled out desperately. Claire closed her eyes. Then we deal with those things as they come. But Marcus, you can't carry the weight of fixing systemic ableism. That's not your responsibility. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Marcus said, I'm tired of being brave. I want to go back to stocking shelves and being invisible. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. The grocery store's corporate office released a statement on social media. They praised Marcus as a valued team member and announced they were implementing mandatory disability awareness training for all employees and managers. They committed to creating neuro-inclusive hiring practices and invited Marcus to consult on the program development. The statement ended, "We stand with Marcus and all our employees who bring diverse perspectives to our workplace." Claire read it 3 times, searching for the catch, the corporate doublespeak, the hollow gesture. But it seemed genuine, or at least as genuine as corporate statements could be. Marcus called her after seeing it. They want to pay me to help design the training, as a consultant, extra money beyond my regular pay. His voice carried disbelief. Why would they do that? Claire thought about optics and public relations and the fact that supporting Marcus now made the company look progressive. But she also thought about the manager who'd called Marcus twice during his absence to reassure him his job was safe. Maybe both things could be true, that the company saw a PR opportunity and that some individuals within it genuinely cared. Maybe because you're worth listening to, she told him. Maybe because they're learning what Lily already knew. Friday brought more shifts. The hospital's administration called Claire in for another meeting, but this time the tone was different. Donna was there, along with the HR director, and both looked uncomfortable. The HR director spoke first. Ms. Donovan, in light of recent developments and further review of the circumstances, we've determined that your administrative leave was premature. We're reinstating you effective immediately with back pay for the time you missed. We'd also like to apologize for any distress this situation caused. The words sounded rehearsed, likely approved by the hospital's legal team who'd seen which way public opinion was blowing. Claire should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt exhausted. What changed? Donna spoke up. The full story came out. People understand context now. The hospital can't be seen as punishing an employee for basic human decency. Claire heard the unspoken truth. The hospital was protecting itself, not her. They'd thrown her under scrutiny when it was convenient and pulled her back when it became inconvenient to keep her there. She thought about accepting the reinstatement, going back to drawing blood and pretending nothing had happened. Then she thought about Marcus refusing to be erased. "I'll need to think about it," she said, and watched both women's faces register surprise. "I'll let you know Monday." Outside, the October sun was bright and cold. Claire sat in her car and called Patricia Chen. "The hospital wants me back, but I don't know if I want to go back to a place that was so quick to abandon me." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "That's your choice to make. But Claire, you have leverage now. If you decide to return, you could negotiate better terms, protected status, a formal apology in your file, assurance that this won't affect future evaluations. You don't have to accept whatever they're offering." Claire hadn't thought about leverage. She'd spent so long just trying to survive that the idea of making demands felt foreign. But maybe that was another thing Lily had understood before her, that sometimes you had to demand to be seen on your own terms. By Saturday, the original video had been taken down from every platform where it appeared. The woman who'd posted it, Janet from upstairs, Claire's own neighbour, had issued a public apology that felt more like damage control than genuine remorse. "I didn't intend to cause harm," the statement read. "I thought it was a funny moment to share. I now understand the consequences of posting without consent and the harm caused by mocking neurodivergent individuals." Claire read it once and felt nothing. The apology cost Janet nothing and gave back nothing that had been taken. Marcus's essay had been republished by major disability advocacy sites, translated into 7 languages, and featured in think pieces about viral culture and privacy rights. A GoFundMe someone had started without asking reached $37,000 in donations meant to support Claire and Marcus through the trauma of public harassment. Claire hadn't known about the fundraiser until a journalist called asking for comment. She felt strange about it, grateful but also exposed in a new way, her financial struggles now public knowledge. When she told Marcus, he said simply, "People want to do something that feels useful. Money is how they express that. It doesn't mean you're charity. It means you're seen." The disability rights organization Patricia worked with filed the lawsuit on Monday morning. They were suing Janet for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and violation of Pennsylvania's wiretapping law that prohibited recording private conversations without consent. The lawsuit named specific damages: Marcus's lost wages during his absence from work, Claire's therapy costs, Lily's counseling expenses, and compensation for the ongoing harassment both families endured. Patricia emphasized this wasn't about revenge. It was about establishing legal precedent that private moments couldn't be commodified for viral content without consequences. News of the lawsuit spread fast. Some corners of the internet celebrated it as necessary accountability. Others claimed Claire and Marcus were opportunistic, weaponizing victimhood for financial gain. The comments sections became battlegrounds again. But this time, something was different. More people were defending them than attacking them. A cultural shift had happened quietly while Claire wasn't paying attention, like weather changing overnight. The narrative had flipped from concerned citizens question single mom's judgment to community rallies around family targeted by cruel mockery. Claire didn't trust it completely. She'd learned that public opinion was fickle and self-serving. Wednesday brought an unexpected visitor. Principal Fletcher from Lily's school called and asked if she could stop by Claire's apartment after work. Claire's first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity won. Fletcher arrived at 5:30, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes that made her seem less authoritative. She declined coffee and got straight to the point. "I handled Lily's suspension poorly. I let other parents' prejudices influence disciplinary decisions. I wanted to apologize directly." Claire crossed her arms. "You suspended my daughter for defending herself after she was physically pushed and verbally attacked. An apology doesn't undo that." Fletcher nodded stiffly. "You're right. But I'd like to correct the record. We're expunging the suspension from Lily's file. We're also implementing a new bullying protocol that specifically addresses disability-based harassment. Madison Thompson received consequences I can't disclose, but she won't be bothering Lily again." Claire felt some of her anger drain away, leaving exhaustion in its place. "What changed your mind?" Fletcher met her eyes. I read Marcus's essay. My brother is autistic, nonverbal. He lives in a group home. Reading what Marcus wrote made me realize I've been part of the problem, treating disability as something to be managed rather than accommodated. I can't fix that overnight, but I can start by fixing what I did to your family. The apology felt genuine in a way Janet's hadn't. Claire saw real shame in Fletcher's face, the kind that came from recognizing your own hypocrisy. Lily can come back Monday, Fletcher continued, and I'd like to invite Marcus to speak to our staff during a professional development day, if he's willing. Paid, of course. We need to hear directly from autistic adults about what inclusion actually means. Odin, Claire said she'd pass along the invitation but couldn't promise anything. Marcus was barely holding himself together under the weight of sudden visibility. Fletcher thanked her and left, and Claire stood at her window watching the principal walk to her car, wondering how many other people were having similar reckonings in private. That evening, Marcus called. The grocery store consultant thing is real. They want me to start next week. 4 hours a week at $30 an hour, reviewing their policies and helping create training materials. His voice carried cautious excitement. That's more money than I make stocking shelves. And they said if it goes well, they might expand it to other stores in the region. Claire felt genuine joy break through her exhaustion. Marcus, that's incredible. You're literally creating the job you deserve. He was quiet for a moment. I keep waiting for it to fall apart. For someone to realize I'm not qualified or important enough, but my therapist says that's trauma talking, not reality. The GoFundMe reached $50,000 by Thursday. The organizer, a disability rights activist Marcus had never met, contacted Claire to discuss how to distribute the funds. After taxes and fees, there was $42,000. The activist suggested splitting it evenly between Claire and Marcus's families. Claire's share would cover 3 months of rent, Lily's therapy, and a small emergency fund. For the first time since the divorce, she could breathe without calculating which bill to pay late. Marcus's share would fund a course on instructional design he'd always wanted to take, plus cover the costs of his increased therapy sessions while navigating newfound visibility. But the money felt complicated. Claire thought about all the people still living the nightmare she was climbing out of, single parents and disabled adults facing judgment without viral essays to defend them, without lawyers offering pro bono help, without crowds of strangers to validate their humanity. She'd gotten lucky in the worst way. Her trauma had been public enough to generate sympathy, and Marcus had been articulate enough to make that sympathy stick. What about everyone else? The thought kept her awake at night, guilt mixing with gratitude in ways she couldn't untangle. Friday afternoon, Derek called. Claire almost didn't answer, but some impulse made her pick up. His voice was different, smaller, uncertain. I saw the news coverage about the lawsuit and everything. I talked to my lawyer about the custody thing. Claire waited. I'm dropping it. I was angry, and I spoke without thinking. Lily's better off with you. I know that. Claire felt vindication war with sadness. Derek's admission should have felt like victory, but mostly it just felt like more evidence of how quickly people would abandon you when convenience demanded it and return when reputation required it. Thank you for telling me, she said flatly. Can I talk to her sometimes? Derek asked. That's up to Lily, Claire said, and ended the call. 3 months later, Claire stood in the community center on Main Street, watching volunteers hang streamers in colors Lily had specifically chosen, deep purple, silver, and gold. The space had been donated for the afternoon by the owner who'd seen Marcus's story and wanted to contribute. Tables lined the walls with donated food from local restaurants. A banner stretched across the back wall reading, Lily's 10th birthday, a celebration of true things. Marcus had suggested the subtitle, and Lily had loved it immediately. Claire felt her chest tighten, watching the transformation. This ordinary room becoming something magical through collective effort from people who'd learned their names through tragedy. Marcus arrived early with Anna, carrying a carefully wrapped present and wearing a button-down shirt Claire had never seen before. He looked nervous, but determined, his hands fidgeting with his collar. "There are going to be a lot of people," he said to Claire. "I counted the RSVPs, 83 people confirmed. That's more than I've ever been around outside of work." Claire touched his arm gently. "You can leave any time you need to. No one will judge you. This party isn't a performance." Marcus met her eyes. "But I want to stay. I want to see Lily blow out her candles. I want to be here for the whole thing, not just the parts that feel comfortable." Guests began arriving at 2. The crowd was beautifully strange. Lily's classmates and their families, neighbors from Claire's building, Marcus's co-workers from the grocery store, people from the disability rights organization who'd worked on the lawsuit, the podcaster who'd interviewed Marcus and wanted to meet Lily, even Mrs. Chen, who'd watched Lily during the suspension and had become something like family. Principal Fletcher came with a gift and a handwritten apology card for Lily. Walter from the hospital appeared with his autistic grandson, both wearing matching shirts that said, "Different, not less." The room filled with noise and warmth, the particular chaos of celebration. Lily moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, thanking people for coming and showing her favorite guests her updated rock collection, which now included specimens Marcus had special ordered from a geology supply company. She wore a purple dress with pockets deep enough to hold 3 small stones, her favorite from the collection, one from Marcus, and the tomato sauce can label they'd saved from that day at the store, carefully laminated. When someone asked why she carried a soup label, Lily explained seriously, "It reminds me that being different doesn't make you less valuable. Sometimes it makes you more honest." At 3 o'clock, Claire gathered everyone for cake. She'd ordered it from a bakery in Wilkes Barre. Chocolate with buttercream frosting and sugar crystals that looked like gemstones decorating the top. 10 candles waited to be lit, but before she could reach for the lighter, Marcus stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but his voice was clear. "Can I say something?" The room quieted. Marcus looked at Lily. "Last year, you invited me to your birthday party when you barely knew me. You saw me as a person worth including. That gift changed my life. Not the video or the essay or anything that came after, but that original invitation. You taught me that I deserve to take up space, so thank you." The room erupted in applause. Lily crossed to Marcus and hugged him fiercely. Claire saw tears on Anna's face, on Walter's face, on the faces of strangers who'd come because they'd seen themselves in Marcus's words. When the clapping faded, Lily spoke into the microphone someone had set up for announcements. "My mum says real friends show up when things are hard, not just when things are easy. Everyone here showed up. That makes you all real." Her simple logic earned more applause and some laughter. Claire lit the candles, and the room sang Happy Birthday. Some voices off-key, including Marcus's, but all of them genuine. After cake, the podcaster pulled Claire aside. "I've been contacted by 3 major news networks wanting to do features on your story. I told them I'd ask if you were interested." Claire watched Lily playing with a group of kids who'd clustered around Marcus as he explained the geological history of different rock types. "I think we've been visible enough," she said carefully. "What we need now is just to be normal again. Or as normal as we get to be." The podcaster nodded. "I understand, but Claire, you should know. Your story's being used in journalism ethics classes now as a case study in how viral content can weaponize private moments. You change something bigger than you realize." Marcus's consulting work had expanded beyond the grocery chain. He now worked with 3 companies developing neuro-inclusive workplace policies, earning enough to move into his own apartment, something he'd feared he'd never be capable of. His blog had become a resource for parents and educators, his plain language explanations of autistic experience reaching people who'd never understood before. He still had hard days when the world felt too loud and too much, but he also had something new, proof that his perspective had value, that his careful, literal truth could reach people in ways neurotypical communication sometimes couldn't. The lawsuit had settled out of court for an undisclosed amount that Patricia said was substantial enough to matter. Janet had been required to issue a formal video apology and attend disability awareness training. She'd moved out of the building shortly after, unable to face Claire in the hallway. Claire didn't feel triumphant about that, just tired. The money helped, the apology helped, but nothing could undo the violation of having her private life turned into entertainment. She'd learned to carry that scar alongside all her others, one more mark of surviving things that shouldn't have happened. At 5 o'clock, as the party wound down, Lily opened presents. There were books and art supplies and a telescope from the podcaster. But the gift that made Lily gasp came from Marcus, a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover and a note inside. For recording true things about the world as you see them. Your observations matter. Lily held the journal like it was precious, her fingers tracing the letters of her name. She looked at Marcus. I'm going to write about today, about how everyone came even though they didn't have to. About how you wore a fancy shirt because you wanted to be here for the whole party, not just the easy parts. Claire found herself standing next to Anna near the refreshment table. Anna squeezed her hand. Marcus told me yesterday that he's thinking about writing a book, about growing up autistic in a world designed for neurotypical people. He asked if I thought anyone would read it. Claire smiled. What did you tell him? Anna's eyes were bright with tears. I told him thousands of people already hang on his every word. I told him he has a voice that reaches people in their deepest places because he refuses to soften his truth. I told him I'm proud of who he's become, not despite his autism, but because of his courage to be exactly himself. She paused. But really, I wanted to say thank you to you and Lily for seeing him before the world did. Yeah, you see. As guests filtered out, Claire stood with Lily and Marcus watching the sun set through the community center windows, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus pointed out the color gradients, explaining the physics of light refraction with that particular intensity he brought to teaching. Lily listened raptly, asking questions that made Marcus's explanations grow more complex and more beautiful. Claire thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, terrified, small, trying desperately to be invisible. She thought about the moment Lily had insisted on inviting Marcus, how that simple act of inclusion had spiraled into something neither of them could have predicted. Not everything had been fixed. The world was still cruel to difference, still quick to judge, still more comfortable with conformity than truth. But standing here, watching her daughter and their friend discuss the electromagnetic spectrum while surrounded by evidence that community could be built from ruins, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, but something steadier. The knowledge that they'd survive whatever came next, together, visible and unashamed. If this story touched you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories about courage and standing up for what's right. Drop a like if you believe people deserve to be seen for who they truly are, not reduced to labels or viral moments. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been misunderstood or judged unfairly because you didn't fit someone's narrow definition of normal? Have you ever had to choose between staying invisible to stay safe or speaking your truth, knowing it might cost you? Share your story below, because everyone who's ever felt too different deserves to know they're not alone.